fields, which are telling you that those are required fields. I can also build an occupation. So inside the occupation area are these search menu buttons. If I click on the search menu buttons, you'll notice that it's employer information that's out here as well as occupation. So from the screen you saw before, it stores the occupation information. Again, that helps drive some information for the doctors to understand what it is that this patient does for a living might also constitute their injury or their care plans. Notice there's employer and place of employment. We get asked about that a little bit, and so I just want to drive home that they could be an employer of GM, but they're working at the Lake Orion plant. So they could work at Walmart, but which Walmart? So it's kind of another way to drive things for collection purposes as well as just reporting purposes and your claim form stuff sometimes. So that's what our occupation button is. We also have Guardian. If I click on Guardian, what you'll see here is that we have Guardian information that we can store for mother, father, or other type of guardian, like maybe the grandmother is the one that's in charge of the child at the moment. Then we can put grandma's name in there. But for, again, collection purposes or follow-up purposes as well as emergency purposes, we have the ability to store multiple addresses that are related to that patient, as well as emergency contact information right here. Guarantors is another area that is the same driver, but the guarantor is the person responsible for the bill. So guarantors are a little bit different, but that gives us a whole other area to put in guarantor information. I also have an other details box down here, which drives home things like workers' comp or auto claim information and their claim numbers and their injury dates, as well as the statuses of a patient. So if a patient's chart needs to be locked for some reason, or if the patient is deceased and you're driving things differently for whatever reason, you can pick that kind of information up. So on the right side of the other details box is the pharmacy search, and I'm sure through EMR that you're already used to the fact that our EMR pharmacy or electronic pharmacy updates every night. So every single night you get a new list of pharmacies or an added list of e-pharmacies that you can actually scroll through and find. So if I was looking for a pharmacy, I could actually type in the city name, comma, and then type in the type of CVS or Rite Aid or whatever. I can actually find those that way by putting in city, comma, and then the name of the store is probably the easiest way to scroll in the pharmacy area, and it'll get you there much faster and better. I also have the ability of adding referring physicians, and notice that when I go in here it is a checkbox. So if I have more than one referring physician, all I have to do is check on those boxes and then save them, and then I do have multiple referring doctors out here. This carries into EMR as well, so when we're sending out our documentation to our referring physicians, that we are hitting all of the physicians that need to be that need documentation from your provider. So for instance, your endocrine and your cardiologist might need information for your visit today. So if I go to primary care physician, that's obviously a different field, and you can only have one primary care physician, and they are the ones that are responsible for getting you your prior authorizations, so you want that to be separate as well. I can put down what location the patient primarily is seen at, so you will build your own location names in there. And so I just, for sample purposes, did main office, remote office, and maybe a hospital. But the idea here is that the patient normally is seen at our remote office, and that becomes our default. Our insurance information is added from here as well. I'll jump in here real quick just to give you a quick idea, but this is where I can actually modify my deductible and copay information as well as my coverage percentages if I wanted. I drive whether it's their primary, secondary, or tertiary insurance, and we do have the ability, which is another competitive edge, to have more than one primary insurance information on a patient. For example, if a patient has workers' comp and commercial insurance, I need to drive both of those as primary and then pick from charge entry which claim am I dealing with today. So it makes it very nice and very easy to maintain without having to have multiple patient accounts out there. One of the things that I really like is this exempt from report and exclude from statement options at the bottom as well. When we have I'll call them dummy patients, but when we have fake patients like Mickey Mouse or training patients, when you're training your staff, you tend to go out here and test things and train things by showing real IC9 and CPT codes, which of course is your diagnosis and procedure codes. When you're doing that on a patient, you're multiplying units, you're putting in real dollar amounts, and all that information actually goes on your productivity reports. So we have with as quick as the click of a button to say exclude our training patients from our productivity reports. So it's that easy to make sure that you can go ahead and have training inside your real database so your staff is actually learning appropriately and not have to do any type of manipulating on your month-end reports to get those training patients out of your productivity reports. So I think that's a real big competitive win right there. When we go into this demo history, this is another area that's really big that a lot of other softwares don't have. When I click on demo history, it'll actually show you any changes that we've made on this patient's account. So it'll show if we've changed their last name, first name, middle initial, addresses, any of the information on there. So it's a great record tracker. So if we change this patient's name from Robert King to Robert Kingsley, and then do save and close, the next time that we go in there and hit demo history, you'll see that his last name was originally set up as Robert King, and now it is in the city and state that he was at was also changed because I put in that new zip code. So it's monitoring and keeping track of everything we're doing. At that point, it is not showing you who made the changes, it's just showing you what changes were there. And just because I was talking about tracking changes, I will show you real quick right now that under Reports Audit Trail, I can actually do from here, it's telling me who's modifying the patient information. So you can actually see what has been done and at what point it was done. So our audit trails are much more detailed in the regular audit trail than in the demographic history. But yet we do want to know what their old address and phone number used to be, so we aren't resending statements to old addresses or something to that effect when you're dealing with collections. So I started to show you based on Robert's account, but I do want to go in to show you maybe a couple of others just to give you an idea that we can do things like store insurance card information out here for a patient. So it'll scan their front and the back of their cards if necessary. I can also go in to show you that on Rosie's account we can put in pictures and separate insurance cards. Because it's a demo database, we don't have real driver's licenses in here right now, but I do want you to know that that ability is there and pretty easy to do. So this is a really nice feature for billing purposes to be able to actually read the right numbers and know the phone numbers, etc., to follow up on. So just wanted to get you back into that a little bit. I'm going to go back to Robert's account. So Robert now has an appointment. So I'm going to kind of jump over to the look and feel of the Microsoft Outlook process, which is what this area here is representing to me anyway. I have my mail and appointments, my calendar, my tasks, which is very similar. So just out of habit, this is where I go into the calendar all the time. It's just where I spend most of my time. But there is also the radio button at the top and the toolbar for calendar. I'm going to double click on here and go into the calendar. And I have this set up today to demonstrate 3 different ways. So I have Dr. Lance Plastic, Dr. Norman Peed, and Dr. Sean Pham showing at the moment. Dr. Lance Plastic I have set up with what we'd call a predefined template. So his appointment templates are set up to say, I only want to see new patients at a certain time of day. I only want follow-up appointments at certain times of day. or urgent care. So they can actually take whatever appointment types they want and create them into a template, a pre-formatted template. Or like Norman Peeds and Sean Pham have out here, is they can just tell the staff, you know how long my 10-minute appointments are, 15 minutes appointments are, just fill my day up the maximum that you can without setting a predetermined template. So on that note, on the left side, I'm going to show you the providers. And if I click on these providers, you're going to see multiple providers show. So if I do have many providers in my practice, I can actually show as many as I would like to show. Or I can certainly shut them off again and only see certain doctors at a certain time. I can also book resources. So my example of a resource is a casting room. Other resources could be things like ultrasounds might be a resource that needs to be booked. A nutritionalist in the office may be a resource that you might be booking at the same time as a doctor. So this is all concurrently being booked, and that's why when I clicked on it, it became a calendar or a schedule that I can schedule at the same time. So just realize that resources can be used from anything from a machine to a room to a person. So whatever it is that makes sense to the practice. Under location is where we can see our patients from. And then at the bottom is color-coded legends. And I have a lot of appointment types out here because I demo to a lot of different specialties. But realize that you would probably, as a practice, only have a few appointment types that make sense to the type of appointments that you use in your office. So I'm going to kind of come back here a little bit and talk about the different ways I can move around in my system. So I can actually take this patient, and they called in and said, I cannot be seen at 9:30 today, I'm running late, can I still come in? Sure, you can come in at 10 o'clock. I can just drag and drop that appointment, and it moves it right into my 10 o'clock appointment slot. So it's that easy to move an appointment around. I can also click on it and just drag it to be a bigger, let me try that again. I can drag it to be a bigger appointment time. So we realize that this patient might need a little more time because maybe they're handicapped or have something that needs to be addressed that's taking more time. I can just drag and drop that appointment to a bigger time slot. I could have also double clicked on it and just changed my duration right from here. So I just want you to see that there's multiple ways of doing that. Not only can I drag and drop them from one appointment to another, but I can go from one doctor to another, or even one day to another. So it's that easy for me to manipulate my calendar. This is a huge competitive piece for our practices. So they usually have to do a lot of jumping through hoops in order to get things scheduled out there. So just wanted to point that out as well. I'm going to go ahead and make an appointment for Robert. So if I right click in an appointment time slot, it'll offer me to do a new appointment, or if I was adding a brand new patient, I could do that, but I'm just doing new appointment right now. So as soon as I do that, it knew that I had Robert's account out on the dashboard, so it knew that that was the patient I'm scheduling for. I could have also certainly clicked on this button here and went to my entire database and searched for my patient that way. My referring doctors automatically carry in from his demographics, as well as if I wanted prior authorizations, I could do that. I can pick which location I'm scheduling for today. So normally